My name is Titus Varius, and in the year 62 of our Lord, though we don't call it that yet, I helped feed a city of 1 million people. No refrigerators, no trucks, no plastic wrap. Just wind, wood, and the desperate math of an empire that knew if the grain ships stopped coming, Rome would eat itself alive within a week. This is how we did it. Understand the scale of this first. Rome wasn't just big, it was impossibly big for its time. 1 million mouths, packed into narrow streets, with almost no farmland inside the walls. The nearest wheat fields couldn't come close to feeding them. And grain doesn't keep well. No cold storage means mold, weevils, rats. Every single day was a race against rot. So Rome did something no city had ever attempted. It built an entire empire, in part, just to keep itself from starving. This is where I came in. I wasn't a farmer or a soldier. I was a cog in something the Romans called the annona, the state grain supply system. Egypt alone shipped enough wheat to feed Rome for a third of the year. Sicily and North Africa covered much of the rest. Every summer, when the winds turned favorable, hundreds of ships called corbitae, fat-bellied cargo haulers built to carry grain, not speed, set sail for our harbour at Ostia. I'd stand on the dock with my wax tablet, counting sacks, checking seals, praying to Neptune that this year's fleet made it through storm season intact. Picture the journey. In Alexandria, Egyptian farmers harvest wheat grown on soil flooded and fertilized every year by the Nile, some of the richest farmland on earth. That grain gets loaded onto ships built specifically for one job: survive open water with a bellyful of cargo. It's a brutal crossing, 3 to 6 weeks, at the mercy of the wind, with pirates and storms as constant threats. Some ships never arrive, but enough do. Enough every single year to keep an empire from starving. Ostia was where the real magic happened. Though it didn't feel like magic, it felt like chaos. This port was Rome's stomach. The moment grain landed, it had to move fast. We had massive warehouses called horia, some the size of city blocks, built with raised stone floors and thick walls to keep the grain cool, dry, and off the ground where rats and damp would ruin it. No refrigeration, but plenty of engineering, airflow, elevation, and constant inspection were our fridge. None of this worked without people, thousands of them. Dock workers called saccari carried sacks on their backs, sometimes over 100 pounds at a time, from ship to warehouse, all day, every day. There were officials checking weight and quality, slaves and freedmen doing the heaviest labour, and boat captains who'd risked their lives and their entire cargo for this one delivery. I once watched a single ship unload for 6 straight hours without stopping. This wasn't a supply chain. It was survival, choreographed. But Ostia wasn't Rome. It was 15 miles downriver. So the grain went again, this time onto flat barges towed up the Tiber by oxen and men walking the banks, or on smaller boats when the current allowed. It was slow, it was expensive, and it was absolutely essential. By the time a sack of wheat reached Rome's public granaries, it had crossed a sea, survived a storm, been carried on someone's back, and floated up a river, all before a single loaf of bread was baked. Inside the city, grain went into public granaries, fortress-like buildings guarded around the clock. This wasn't just commerce, it was politics. Rome's leaders knew that a hungry mob was a dangerous mob. So the state didn't just allow the grain trade, it subsidized it, and eventually gave free grain rations to over 200,000 citizens a month. Feeding Rome wasn't charity. It was crowd control. It was how emperors stayed emperors. Here's the part that still amazes me when I explain it. How do we keep grain edible for months without ice or refrigeration? The answer was airflow, elevation, and constant turnover. Grain was stored in shallow layers, not deep piles, so air could move through it. Floors were raised on small brick pillars to stop ground moisture from creeping in. Workers regularly turned and inspected the stock, pulling out anything showing mold or pests. It wasn't glamorous. It was relentless, boring, essential maintenance, repeated every single day for centuries. But the system was fragile. I knew that better than most. One bad storm season, one pirate fleet in the wrong shipping lane, one delayed harvest in Egypt, and Rome felt it within weeks. Bread prices spiked. Crowds gathered outside granaries. Emperors who let the grain supply fail didn't stay emperors for long. I used to think of myself as a small trader on a dock. Looking back, I realized men like me were holding up one of the largest, most fragile logistics operations in the ancient world, one sack at a time. What we built in Ostia and Rome became the blueprint for feeding cities for the next 2,000 years. Grain elevators, public food subsidies, port logistics, cold chain-free storage using airflow and elevation. The bones of it are still visible in how modern cities move food today. No refrigeration. No engines. Just wind, wood, oxen, and an empire's worth of desperate, brilliant engineering. Next time you buy a loaf of bread without a second thought, remember it took Rome and empire and navy and men like me risking everything on a dock just to make sure 1 million people never went hungry. If you want more stories like this, told from the ground level of history, subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from.